Greetings and good afternoon or good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Ambassadorial Wing, another installment of the Council of the Ones Babylon 5 review. And hope you all are having a pleasant day. Hope you all had a great week. And we are back once again with you all as we are continuing our review of Babylon 5, Season 5. And today we're going to be covering the episode Paragon of Animals. And with me, as always, I have got my fellow council members. You know them, you love them. They're wacky, they're crazy, they're kooky, they're all together ooky. They're the Council of Ones. Fiona Wolf, Mountains of Elysium, and our dear good friend who has been MIA due to catching a certain virus, which we will not speak of here, but we are glad to have him back, Mr. Zodrider. And my fellow council members, it is good to see y'all once again. And to everybody in the chat, Archer Colin, MB Geek of MB Geek Let's Talk, and everybody else that's lurking out there in that vast, broad frontier known as the internet. Hope y'all are having a great day and glad to have y'all with us once again. So, my friends, I've done my spiel. Let's jump in, because we don't send a bunch of ceremony here. We don't do 15-minute intros and then bury the lead. We jump straight into the topic. So let's get on with it. Or as they say in one of my favorite movies, get on with it.
I like the fact that Jakar keeps having to rewrite everything. Wait, it's not perfect. My muse says this isn't perfect. We have to keep adding more. What? And then he has to rewrite it like how many times during the episode? 4 or 5 times?
Well, I like seeing the fact that somebody as great as Jakar has writer's block. It's pretty awesome.
Although I do like the fact that the way this episode turns out, they need that like kind of articles of how to act proper with the Interstellar Alliance. Otherwise, they'll all be like, "What's in it for me, bub?"
Indeed. What's in it for me? Well, what's in it for me? And they're like, hey, this isn't Interstellar Radio Shack, or this isn't Interstellar Best Buy. You want you want stuff, you gotta behave. And yeah, so
or act like a proper unified force, which is like, yay, eventually they get around to it.
Interstellar Best Buy. I wonder if that exists. Yeah.
I thought they shut down the shop on Babylon 5.
Yeah. A lot of the shops got shut down on Babylon 5 at one time or another, but
yeah. Huh. Well, besides the Avatar issue, I'm just a big white block today. Hello.
Yeah, unfortunately, for some reason, Fiona and Zod, neither one of your avatars are showing up on YouTube, and I'm not sure why.
That's weird.
Oh yeah, that happened to me there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it happened to me too, and everything the other day when I went live. So, but anyway, guys, if you got an alternate avatar that you want to use, go ahead and use it. Or if you just want to be a white block, we'll make sure and acknowledge whoever's speaking. So, yeah, this episode deals with the Declaration of Principles for the Interstellar Alliance, and also deals with the creation of the covert ops, the telepathic covert ops wing of the Interstellar Alliance, headed by one Mr. Michael Garibaldi. And I have to say, this particular episode, I kind of wanted to thunder punch Mr. Byron in the throat, because he was acting kind of like an ass, but at the same time, I'm thinking, is he justified? And I have to say, yeah, he is kind of justified, but he didn't have to be quite as belligerent to Garibaldi. I mean, Garibaldi came there with the best of intentions, and Byron was, well, not to put a point on it, he was kind of a prick. But again, I have to ask myself the question: is he justified? And again, I have to say, yeah, he is kind of justified. So, guys, your thoughts on that particular part of the episode, or wherever you particularly want to start. So,
I think he's kind of justified a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I got that feeling that he was justified, even though I agree with you. I think he was being very I don't know, belligerent. Yeah, that's a good word.
I think he's a bit of a supremacist. He's
Yeah.
Vesper in another skin. And while he's trying to take the pacifist route, he still believes himself superior to mundanes. And to be fair, mundanes have treated even their allies. We see the way Lida is being treated. So their animosity is understandable, but I think not justified if you want to have peace.
Yeah, and Elysium, Zod, you both bring up good points because Garibaldi brings it up in a conversation. I think it's like the cold open of the episode, where Sheridan's in like the observation dome or something, and no, it's after. I can't remember exactly. I've slept since then, but he's like. Garibaldi makes the comment 6,000 years and we're still trying to figure out what is moral and what is amoral, and he's like, you're trying to get this going, you're trying to debate this now at the outset of you creating your, as Garibaldi says, your little empire. And I understand what Garibaldi is saying, but I also understand Sheridan's perspective on this, because Sheridan wants there to be a set of morals and a set of a baseline for how the members of the Interstellar Alliance are supposed to behave. And I think Sheridan is right, but also Garibaldi is right. They need to figure out, they need to make a show of a demonstration of force. And of course, in this episode, we see that happen, so to speak. And that is, of course, through the Interstellar Alliance intervening on behalf of a very young race, the Infili, and who have been, well, major spoilers for those that haven't seen this episode. And I imagine everybody that's here has seen this episode. They have been abused and exploited by the Drazi. Because Emphilia, the planet, is on the border of Drazi space, and the Drazi have pretty much turned a blind eye and even aided in the Emphili's abuse.
And honestly, with how many civil wars everybody's gone through, to have a baseline of principles is a good idea. Because, like with anything else, 200, 300 years down the line, you don't know what kind of historical things are going to be happening.
Yay.
Hey, OJ, good to see you, man.
Hey, happy to be here.
Hey,
OJ. The Avatar.
Yeah, we were all having fun, like half fun with the Avatar. So it's like, okay, I'll change it up, and I'll basically... This whole thing is old Khan's art. He does a good job. Yes.
Sorry.
No, it's okay, Elysium. Go ahead.
No, I think like the Infili reminded me of the those characters in was it a Galaxy Quest, but without the technological advance. They believed
the Thermians.
Well, yeah, very straightforward. Which, you know what? I miss that out of a lot of science fiction. I want a race that's like, "Hi, we're here to help." It's simple as that.
Yeah, but when you get races like that say we're here to help, you find out later on that they use human beings for food. So it's kind of
but that's a little bit more of the subversion, cynical side that's been prevalent for like the last couple decades, which is like,
Sure.
what it says on the tin. I kind of want that.
Well, I'm using the reference from the Outer Limits from the 1950s.
Yes.
Oh,
So
I thought you were talking about
So you're also using Zod. You're also using the reference from the '80s miniseries V.
Yeah.
Well,
We're here
that too.
because we need your help,
that too.
and we want to help you too.
And
But
not
we
only
also want to eat you.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, and it was all these aliens and from the Outer Limits. They were all benevolent and they loved humans and all this. And they had this big thing. It was almost like the articles of like the Interstellar Alliance. But what it was it was a cookbook for cooking humans. Yeah.
Or they just
Are you
want to
sure
say
it was-
mosquitoes, like in that Disney movie. What's the name? Lilo and Stitch on Earth.
But yeah, you've got two very interesting conflicts in this episode because Garibaldi's like, hey, everybody else around here uses telepaths for military purposes, except us. Of course, we have the Psychor, and well, the Psychor is just sucks ass. It's corrupt and just evil and just bad, and we want to see it go away very, very soon. And of course, you've got the whole issue of the Interstellar Alliance and the Declaration of Principles, and you've got Jakar, who's trying to pin this thing down, quite literally, and it's not easy to try and do that. But I think what Sheridan read in this episode was, I think, very eloquent and very very well said. So,
And I think it's adorable that Dylan kept egging him on. It's like, no, read it to me. No, don't read it.
And I like the fact at the very end they said, Jakar says, I've written it better. And they all go, oh yeah, it's better. But they never say what it is. And that leaves it up. I think JMS is saying he'd have to be saying to himself, this is the best thing that can ever be written. But what he did was he left it open for others to think and maybe put their own slant on the Interstellar Alliance in there.
Yes, totally open for interpretation.
And also, it's a good theme because he's setting the precedent and the theme that we can be better, but even when we're better, we can continue to even be even more better. Like always strive, stars the limit, and we're beyond the rim now.
And I like the fact that the Declaration of Principles goes back to that episode Believers, when Sinclair said, like, I left the camel's nose into the tent with that decision. Another decision will leave the whole camel in. Here, Sheridan is setting it up that, no, before anyone joins, we need to have principles. Because if we don't have principles, things will happen that will become the norm. And like the whole theme from Babylon 5, if you do the right thing for the wrong reasons, or the work becomes corrupted. And no matter what they'll do, the Interstellar Alliance will fail at some point if they don't set out at the start by laying down clear guidelines. We can't be dicks to each other.
Which, again, pays dividends later.
Just
Especially when humans decide we're going to have another civil war. Oh, no.
And, just out of curiosity, Elysium, either one of the links that you put in the chat, do either one of those contain the speech, the Declaration of Principles?
I'll just have a look there. It's the
because I'd really like to, I'd really love
There's
to
one
read
here.
that.
While you're doing, I popped in the chat earlier the letter Franklin wrote to the Rangers' parents, which I thought was lovely.
Yes, it was.
I linked it. It's in the wiki as its own wiki.
Okay, yeah, it does, yeah.
Yes.
Well, and oh, thank you, Fiona, because I love. Okay, I'm gonna pull this up because I really want to read this.
Ooh, the picture I found online is nice. It's like his actual the scroll or whatever he wrote on.
Okay. Now, if I can just get it to load. Oh, here it is. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Well, it's actually the preamble, first edition. Okay. I am by no means as eloquent as either the President Sheridan or Ambassador Jakar, but I will effort to do my very best with this. So, the universe speaks in many languages, but only one voice. It speaks in the language of hope. It speaks in the language of trust. It speaks in the language of strength and the language of compassion. It is the language of the heart, the language of the soul. But always it is the same voice. It is the voice of our ancestors speaking through us, and the voice of our inheritors waiting to be born. It is a small, still voice that says, "We are one." No matter the blood, no matter the skin, no matter the world, we are one. No matter the pain, no matter the darkness, no matter the loss, no matter the fear, we are one. Here, gathered together in common cause, we agree to recognize this singular truth and this singular rule that we must be kind to one another, because each voice enriches us and ennobles us, and each voice lost diminishes us. We are the voice of the universe, the soul of creation, the fire that will light the way to a better future. We are one.
And also the plucky kind of people that will kick you out of their galaxy.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Well,
for the
well,
haters who are, as Zathras would say, not the one. I'm just kidding.
because
Oh,
new,
man.
the new Interstellar Alliance, fresh out of its crib and before it's even learned to walk, is going to find the neighborhood bully and pick a fight.
Fight.
Even though that bully happens to be someone that helped us kick back against the shadows, huh? Yeah. They're
Yeah.
born every minute.
And this episode really shines a light on what it means to be a moral, ethical, decent person. And I will say this of Byron, even though what I said of him earlier was a little harsh. He could have remained silent and let the Interstellar Alliance get a really bad bloody nose, but he didn't. And he spoke up when he had no justifiable reason to. And he displayed what it means to be a moral, ethical person. Even to people that he considers perhaps beneath him. He did the right thing. And as the old saying goes, it's easy to do the right thing when someone is watching. But no, wait a minute, I've got that flipped. It's easy to do the right thing when somebody is watching. But it's better to do the right thing when nobody is looking.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
I think in Byron's case, it's because he didn't really live up to his own principles in the end. He took the easy way out.
I agree with that.
I think that's the reason why in the end he's the kind of character where he says all the right things. He might even do some of the right things, but in the end he fails to live up to what he wanted to be for his people.
It's kind of along the lines of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. Or I thought in this one, and it's only something I thought of there, that Byron was 100% right in holding off, not helping Garibaldi. Because he said, we are not tools, we are not weapons, we are not to be used, we are people. And it's only when Lida met him as an equal and asked him, he said, we need this because it matters, that he said, okay, I'll do it. That was the right way to do it, because they were being asked in the right way, not demanded, not expected, but asked. Where Garibaldi was kind of expecting them to, I ask, you'll toe the line, and without really seeing them as people.
Exactly, because if I may add to that, because Byron came when he approached Garibaldi, he came in a fast, kind of like stressed out, aggressive manner, because he mentioned that he could hear all Garibaldi's thoughts. Now, if any of us are in the mind of Garibaldi, I think we would feel a little tense, because
his mind already got swissed.
Yeah, and also, yeah, that too. It's like a big mess because he said he's thinking of everything Garibaldi was thinking to counter if they said this. He's thinking of Garibaldi's intentions, Garibaldi's secret intentions. Like Garibaldi, I think he does look, and we all know this, he does look at telepaths as a weapon. And he's mentioned before he's not a gun guy, but if everyone's got one, he wants the biggest one. So he's looking at things like that. So that's a thought too that's coming in, and this is something that telepaths have to deal with, but are not allowed to voice up as a problem because to them it's very inconsiderate. So he's come with that negative energy in. It's just a definite hell no.
Yeah,
but what's even more ironic is the fact that Byron was Bester's protege, so he should have basically looked like Garibaldi was completely fucked over by Bester. It's like, so why don't you have a little bit of sympathy for that? Because he's trying to get away from the same thing.
Exactly.
well, Byron is suffering from his own insecurities and inadequacies. Right. That's what it is. I mean, you could tell he's going through so much, and his way of dealing with it is to kind of combat all of that anger and frustration with anger and frustration. He's a very inadequate and little insecure person, kind of like Bester. So he kind of fits in as Bester's protege there. It kind of makes sense, and I'm glad that
he's kind of like
yeah,
he's trying to be
like a mini me, like a mini me of Bester, essentially. Because if you think about it, all of his tactics that he uses throughout, not just here, but all the things that we see when we see Byron throughout, essentially shows exactly that he is becoming what he claims to be fighting against this whole time. It's crazy.
Well, what really gets me is you could tie it back to when Franklin was running the Underground Railroad. Franklin did more for the telepaths than Byron.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, dude, come on. Like, Byron, not all the mundanes are bad. But
Byron thinks he's the Abraham Lincoln of telepaths, but actually it was Franklin.
Abraham Franklin.
Oh man.
It's kind of like Byron is still dealing in that telepath logic. I mean, Psychor logic of ultimatums. Like it's
Psychor logic.
And if I can't have it, it's an extreme measure to make a statement, which we'll see later. And I think there are more other productive ways. He's just kind of stuck in that extreme mentality, probably because we're around Bester way too much.
Absolutely.
In many ways, they are exactly what they're attacked as. They are a cult, but yet I remember being years ago, kind of around the time I started watching Babylon 5 first, I was in an extremely depressed, bad place, and when I saw that, I looked at Byron going, oh my god, I wish there were people like that who cared for others the way Byron clearly cares for his people. And I can now, on the other side of that, finding my own feet, seeing that is really dangerous, because Byron has some really messed up, even though he has good principles and tries to stick by them, some of his principles are really messed up.
His
And
principles are corrupted, like he is.
yeah,
And
Like-
kind of like their living space. Everyone's kind of conserving what space they have to sleep and whatever. And yo, you look at Byron's room. He's got a nice pad. You know that bedroom like bigger than.
And
the
everybody else
shoulder,
is like
you
in
know?
a communal space almost.
Yeah, I'm like,
Uh,
You know, I thought it
Yeah,
was-
he's king. You know, he's king of the telepath, basically. Basically, yeah.
Or at least an offshoot. Because the other telepaths with the Underground Railroad, they all work together and even managed to get Talia to work with them, as a unit, as a genuine team. Here you get it's more like it's Byron and people who are latching on to him.
Because
Yeah.
you notice our little homie, I don't mean that in an offensive way, but the guy who knew Devereaux, I forget the character's name, but we don't see him around. But I don't know if he moved station, but he
Oh, yeah.
seemed like a really good person to be and have for the telepath.
he would have been a good balance against Byron, I think, because
Right, I think
he was a
it would've been-
P12 as well.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping we'd see him. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he was,
have a feeling those guys are probably Ironheart's probably out trying to get more telepaths away from the epicenter of fun that'll happen later on. Well, or at least you probably would have seen more of that had Crusade been able to go on longer.
Yeah.
Baywatch in space.
Well, for me, this episode, Byron says it very, very succinctly, and he uses, of course, the words of the great bard, which I will say this: I am glad sci-fi exists because it gives an opportunity to really showcase the work of Shakespeare, and I think. And I'm going to read this in its entirety, not just the little snippet that Byron reads, because I think the whole speech, the little soliloquy from Hamlet, from Act 2, Scene 2, it speaks very, very powerfully of this episode in general. And I think maybe just a little bit of this season. So anyway, this is you'll know it when I come to the particular part and everything. But I was able to find this, and we'll put this in the context of the episode. From Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2. I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen mount no further. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercise, and indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition, that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave overhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire. Why, appeareth no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals. And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights me not. No, nor woman neither. Though by your smiling, you seem to say so. I'm glad that Straczynski included this piece from Hamlet, and particularly for this episode, because if we put this little speech, very powerful speech, in the context of the episode, humanity and all the other races that exist in the B5 universe, to not say it to be demeaning or rude or anything, we are part of the paragon of animals. Though we know that we are mortal and we reason differently than animals do, we're still part of that paragon. And what Sheridan and Delenn and Londo and Jakar are trying to do is figure out a way to instill. Yeah, Drake, I will agree. Picard said it better. Absolutely. I was just trying to give it a little bit of eloquence, but get it out there. So, but
They don't want other people turned into glue for other bigger people on the block. Yeah.
exactly. And I think the reason why I'm glad that this particular piece from Hamlet is included in this episode is that to ask the question, what a piece of work is man? And Garibaldi says it. In 6,000 years, consider everything that we have done, and we still are trying to be better people, and we're getting there. But we're not quite there yet. And how Sheridan and Garibaldi deal with Byron and the telepaths, and how Byron himself deals with the norms and even deals with Lida. He himself is part of that paragon, though he has an advantage over the normals. Yeah, and Bureau 31, yes. And what he might say with irony, I say with conviction. Yes. Yeah, and I know that episode very well. It's one of my all-time favorites from Next Generation. And it really brings into focus this question of what does it mean to be moral? What does it mean to be ethical? What does it mean to treat your fellow human, whether they are gifted with abilities that you are not, fairly and equitably? What does it mean to reach out to a race that you know nothing about, but who has called out from the darkness for help? And even for that one Lone Ranger who made it to B5 to bring the message, though on his deathbed, quite literally. What does it mean to be moral?
It seems to me that a lot of the Ranger Corps is very idealistic. That's what I like about them. They're willing to put everything on the line to do the right thing.
Yeah.
They kind of live by the I think we'll see it later in season 5 with the guy who played Emperor Turan when he plays the it's called Learning Curve, and he tells them you should be prepared to die alone in the dark for that person. I think I popped the thing back in the chat there. Your son served with honor. He died bringing us news that may save the lives of literally thousands of people he did not know, but whose lives mattered to him more than his own. And he died alone on a table with just Lita for company. And he just said, make my life matter. He was just happy to die so someone else could live. And he didn't ask for fanfare, didn't ask for anything, just that his sacrifice, that his failure, and he saw what he did as a failure. I didn't. He gave his last breath to save people.
Yes.
Just in the
Even
hope
after his
he could
last
do it.
breath, he was saving people.
Yes.
And you know, there's another piece to this episode that I do want to spend a little time on. and that is Lida's conversation with Garibaldi. Because for the first time, we see the effect of what happens when a telepath is linked to the mind of a person who is dying.
As
And
Buster had too much of, right?
Oh
unfortunately,
yeah, the Bester trilogy showcases like they started Bester out in like his late teens with that stuff because he was that powerful. Yeah, Bester saw a whole lot of deathbed scans.
In
yeah,
a
he
young
did.
teenage age.
Yeah, and Lida said that perhaps maybe the best part of him was ripped away during one of those deathbed scans. And a MB Geek, do you want to understand Shakespeare? My suggestion, if you can find copies of them, find movies from the 90s that Kenneth Branagh did. Henry V, Hamlet, Othello. I'm sure that
Absolutely.
Much Ado About Nothing, A Midsummer's Night's Dream. Damn it, this is inspiring. This is giving me an idea to do a stream on Shakespeare in the 90s. That'd be fun.
You know, yeah,
Well,
Shakespeare is. Oh, sorry, go on.
no, it's okay.
Oh,
Go
another
ahead.
thing to understand Shakespeare that helped me, because in college I was casted to be in Midsummer Night's Dream. Then later on, I was like a artistic director / choreographer for Midsummer Night's Dream at UC Irvine, and you understand Shakespeare more when you have the task of trying to tell it or be a part of it, and it's more than just reading it, but reading it aloud or trying to perform it too tells more of the story. It's really brilliant stuff.
You know, I had the opportunity during my college years, well, it was just a few years ago. One of the last performances I gave, or was a part of, I should say, was a production of The Tempest, which was actually, for a lot of us who are fans of Shakespeare, was considered the last play he ever wrote. And I had the very distinct pleasure, and I had a great time doing it, to play the character of Caliban. And
Oh wow.
I still have they recorded a few performances, and I still have that particular performance saved on DVD, and I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. We didn't have a big facility. We had to build our sets. We had to do the costuming and everything else, the makeup and everything, and it was an app. I cannot tell you all how much of a delight it was to be able to be a part of a production of one of Shakespeare's lesser known works, but still no less powerful.
Oh, 100.
I did Shakespeare for the Chicago Shakespeare Theater for a while. I was in Romeo and Juliet, and I was in Hamlet as well.
Hey.
And acting in Shakespeare is one of the best ways to learn Shakespeare. I can honestly say that,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
I was always a fan. I mean, I was always a fan of Shakespeare growing up. I loved Hamlet. I loved all those stories, all of them. And I have a, you know, a complete works of William Shakespeare that I've had since I was a child. And honestly, those plays are absolutely fantastic. But you know what, Ambassador, your recommendation of just watching anything from Kenneth Branagh in the 90s is great. I would also highly recommend Franco Zeffirelli's version of Hamlet, which starred Mel Gibson, which is also pretty damn good.
It's okay, but if you want to get a real sense of the play, this is not to throw shade at Mel Gibson by any stretch, but if you want to get a real sense of the play and the fact that they go through the entire script verbatim, or the entire play verbatim, Kenneth Branagh's version is the quintessential
I would say that Kenneth Branagh's version is the best version, but I have I do have a soft spot in my heart for the Franco Zeffirelli version, because
and I respect that.
Zeffirelli made some great films. He even did the 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet, which even by today's standards is considered to be one of the
Yes.
greatest versions ever put to film. So for me, I look at that, but Shakespeare there's so many great iterations, and honestly, Kenneth Branagh did it exceedingly well in the 90s.
He did.
I think
He really did. And I'll say this. I'll send y'all a picture of this and everything on our little chat group later. My mother ambassador many years ago was at a high school. I think it was like a garage sale or something, and she found me. And it is hard. It is a hardbound. It is very thick and very heavy. But it is the complete annotated works, plays and sonnets of Shakespeare. And it is hardbound, and it has got very beautiful engraved drawings in it, and I love it to death. So, anyway,
Well, one thing though that I remember from this particular episode is Byron's being pretty condescending to Lida at the one point, like, "Oh, be a good dog, get this, get that." But I never got the sense that Sheridan and the crew asked Lita, like after the fact to do things. They genuinely cared about her, Byron just makes it seem like it was just simple transactions, but they considered Lita a friend,
yeah.
yes.
So I think that was a little bit of a disservice on Byron's part. Like, not all mundanes see telepaths as mere tools to be used.
But I think
Dr.
Byron
Franklin
sees-
certainly didn't.
Yeah. And that is true too, because the thing that Byron doesn't understand is a lot of the command crew regard Lida not just as an asset to be used. They do regard her as a friend, and even Sheridan at the end and everything after the fall, after they discover what's
At the heart of what happened with the telepaths, how they developed.
Yeah, when in this episode, when after they find out what happens with what the Drazi had been doing, and Sheridan, after everybody else leaves, and it's just him and Lida, and he looks back at her and he says, "You saved a lot of lives today, Lida. Thank you." And she has this very surprised look on her face, and after he leaves, as he's leaving, she says, "You're welcome."
Yeah, they might not always thank her, but they thanked her in other ways other than saying it. It's just that sometimes everybody gets so caught up in everything that's happening. Sometimes even a simple thank you does have a lot of weight to it.
Yeah,
but it was also
exactly.
kind of like it could have been more a more thankful thank you. It was a little too casual, I felt, and I think that's what she registered it as well too, because I do feel that they are also used to keeping Lida a bit at arm's length because of when she did join Psychor. She wasn't 100% on with the crew, but they still kept her on. But unfortunately, I think that created a weird habit of a wall between her and them in a weird way.
I still think it was a bad idea that they gave her a romance subplot with Byron. Like, oh no, oh no.
Well, yeah, because I never. That's the one thing I've never.
I didn't really
never
buy
understood
it.
because I don't. Number one, there's no chemistry between the two of them.
None.
No.
No. Lida had more chemistry with Ivanova, honestly, even just as a friend. Heck,
Yes,
Right.
yes, exactly. And my problem is if you're gonna create a romantic entanglement that's going to create as many problems as this relationship does throughout the season, it has to be convincing. And I just didn't buy Lida with Byron. I don't know if it was because the actor who's playing Byron. I don't know if it's because of the way Byron comes off, but I just don't see Lida being attracted to him at all.
they would have worked better, I think, as like a brother-sister kind of relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
I think, though, in some ways, I disagree because going back to what I said earlier, when I felt broken, I looked at Byron as, my God, there's someone who cares. Lida had just seen somebody die and has been used to being kicked, has had to rejoin Psychor. And there was somebody who actually made her think, no, you do matter. And
That's-
she'd been going along thinking. So I think she maybe latched onto him as a lifeline. And it's not maybe romantic, but it's desperation rather than romantic. It became, in her mind, romantic. But I think it was toxic.
Yeah, I think you're right, because what he was giving her was what she needed, but it feels like more of like an emotional teacher or lesson. Not saying he's teaching her how to love or be happy, but by being close to him helps her find out who she is, even if it is toxic and very weird. I don't know, it does feel a bit codependent, but there is there's enough compassion there to help her, I think, on where she's going.
But in a way, I don't
But
even
not
think
healthy.
if say Ivanova had stayed on,
Or
if Claudia Christian had stayed on, I don't think the Ivanova Byron relationship would have felt genuine either.
No, absolutely not.
No,
It-
considering how she feels about telepaths, even if they're not Psychor.
Because it took Talia 2 years to finally break through Ivanova's armor, and then it's just like, oh, thanks, Buster. Oh, oh
And Archer, thank you. I did not know that Robert Akins Downs voices one of the characters in Skyrim, which I'm currently replaying. Yeah, Colin, you're
that's
not the
right.
only one. I can't remember who. That's the actor who plays Byron, I believe.
Yep. Oh no, he doesn't have a bad voice or anything. It's just, it was like a character that was really. I honestly think Lockley made a better impression, but they didn't also give Lockley too many direct entanglements with the main cast. They had like the little aside where she dated Sheridan for a while, but it wasn't something that affected her whole arc.
No.
It's like, oh boy. But now you think about it, Bester really messed up a lot of people's lives.
You think? The little sleazeball?
I think that made him a more effective villain than most of the villains that were on that show. He wasn't always directly there, but when he was.
Yes.
Oh,
I
quick
think-
aside. Just real quick, Lisa, and then I'll let you go. A question, Koj, have you been able to find the 10th anniversary stuff in your playthrough now of
Oh
Skyrim?
yes, I've been coming across the 10th anniversary stuff. In fact,
Okay.
Fiona showed up to one of my streams for it. It was quite hilarious.
Okay.
It
All
was
right.
good.
All right. Go ahead, Elysium.
No, I was just thinking that Byron was nearly too big a character for the short stint of time he'll be there for season 5. He
Yeah.
kind of needed longer, and I think he and Ivanova could have worked had he been on longer and had she been staying back. Obviously, they would have been very antagonistic, but when they had that kind of those alien race come in and attack the station, something around that time could have maybe brought them together, where either he saved her or she saved him, and they both realized that their animosity, that they're still human at the core, and that's what should unite them, not the fact that one can read a mind. And well, Ivanova could a little, but it could have united them and really made some difference.
I have a feeling though, if Talia's actress hadn't gone anywhere, Byron would have been a good hook to get Talia back.
Maybe.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, like with a what if scenario, but yeah, like I could see why they had to add Byron to certain things to kind of set the stage for the telepaths having a lot of issues. But it's just like one of those things where they didn't know they were going to get season 5, so here we are.
Yeah.
Just a shame we didn't get season 6. But maybe with this
Well, we got
series,
Crusade. Yeah.
we got Crusade. Yeah, that is true. We did, and we will come to that in due time. Trust me.
Yeah.
So, but I think one of the reasons why I really enjoy this episode as much as I do is it sets us it poses, I think for me, the positing of the moral what it means to be moral and ethical, and how you put that into a broader context of an interstellar alliance, and trying to figure out a way to word this in a way where everybody will agree to it. And Jakar's part in this episode, I think, is you gotta admire Jakar's passion and his feverish enthusiasm to make this declaration of principles sound as best as it possibly could and say what it needs to say that everybody will be on board for. That for me is, I think, the great thing about this episode, honestly. And of course, you can't go wrong with a few Shakespeare quotes here and there either.
Yeah. This season honestly makes me realize he had more stuff set up for how the Interstellar Alliance starts and some of the basic, conflicts for that, and also the fall of Centauri Prime and the Drock angle. But then, I think honestly the Byron storyline was a little bit more of an afterthought, just to fit in kind of like a B plot on the station, and to maybe have Lockley play a little bit off of that as well, because she gets rather no nonsense with Byron, because she knows something's stinking up in there. It's like, I
would have liked to have seen them if they were going to keep it going for a lengthy period of time. Like, say we would have got a season 6, it would have been nice to see Byron in a love triangle with Lockley and Lida, because it would have been interesting to see that, like a different dynamic, something interesting. And I agree with you, Fiona, that it's like they just wanted to give, almost like they wanted to give this character something to do on the station as an aside. It really did feel like an afterthought as a character, because they needed something there, when in actuality, I think Lida was a strong enough character.
Yeah, to do a lot of that stuff on her own.
To lead the underground, the telepaths, and to try to, she just was way, way better written and a lot more of an impactful
and people were
character.
Already invested in her. Byron didn't have the chance to really develop like it kind of.
He was just some like lug that just came out of nowhere, and we're just supposed to believe that he's this revered, telepath and all this, and you find out all the stuff about his connections to Bester and the like, and it's just, to me, it's like he just wasn't convincing enough. And like I said, I don't know if it's because of the actor, I don't know if it's because of the writing, but I agree with you. I feel like he was more of an afterthought that was kind of tacked on, to give some more on station action some attention.
Man, but I will say, like, I recently backed a Kickstarter that had the artist for the Babylon 5 virtual season 6. She's still going. She's still doing the comic for it, and she's actually following a lot of the stuff that was set up in the expanded books and everything.
Awesome.
So I linked it. It's a Babylon 6 comic that, even though it's Tumblr, it's still useful. Cool. It's just an interesting take. You'll get to see Veer on the station doing his ambassadorial work with Talia and everybody else, and it involves still all the rest of the characters. So I just find it interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, but no, she's breaking out. She's doing Kickstarters for other projects, like the Pulsar comic, which I'll probably do a review later on my channel. It's just I'm gonna wait for my voice to clear up a bit.
Awesome stuff. Yes.
Yep. I mean, you can go hit to click to go back to the very first one.
Yeah. It looks awesome. I didn't even know that this existed.
Yep. She basically takes in a lot of the threads that were.
I should send her the episode that I wrote. Have her throw it and see if she'll throw it into season 6. Wow.
Do it.
This is cool.
Oh yeah, and you'll
Okay.
see her artwork keeps improving as she goes along. But no, it's a lot for one man band to do. So
Yeah.
I can imagine.
There's
So-
some great artists working either in animation or in comics at the moment that doing great work by themselves. I think I mentioned it in a previous stream. The Astartes, some guy wrote it, and the animation work on that is just beautiful.
Mhm.
but yeah, the Colin does bring up a good point. The season 4 was originally supposed to end with Sheridan's capture because they really did shove 2 seasons worth of stuff into season 4.
Well,
Yeah, they did.
that's why season 4. That's one of the reasons why it's such a phenomenal season, because
Yeah.
it doesn't give you a minute to breathe. It doesn't let up at all. It's just wow, 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 and your jaw never leaves the floor the entire season. So it's just like,
Considering the string shoe budget they had to work on, yes, they did a good job.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I liked it. Kind of forced them to do their best in a certain amount of time, and that's a really good challenge to encourage creativity, I think.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know if anybody else saw this on Twitter, but I also saw it on Facebook. Apparently, JMS has finished the script for. I think it's the first, the scripts for season 1 at least, or at least for the script for the first episode. So they should go into shooting before too long. I would hope.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what they do and what he does, I should say, because
Yes.
again, being the creator of Babylon 5, he's going to bring the correct perspective.
Yes.
At least it's not somebody coming in like a you know, a young CW writer that has no connection to
idea.
Babylon 5 whatsoever and is just writing something like a lot of the modern, you know, Star Trek stuff that exists these days. That's why I'm hoping, you know, with the original creator on board, you know, there's reasons to be somewhat optimistic.
I think if you listen, sorry, Ambassador.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Lisa.
I think JMS was mentioning about some of the directions he wanted to take things. His YouTube channel, he is putting out commentaries on all of his on all of the old episodes, and he's doing them one by one. Now, a lot of them are supposedly up on his Patreon, but he's releasing them to his YouTube channel. And he does mention that a lot of stuff he had done the first time around, he wanted to do different things, but either the budget wasn't large enough, the CGI wasn't possible, or he felt the culture wasn't ready for some of what he wanted to do. And maybe he'll do it this time.
Yeah, and well, I could probably venture a guess at one potential storyline that maybe didn't go as far as maybe he wanted to. And no, I won't say that. I will say this, and no, it does not bother me to say it. The love affair between Talia and Ivanova. I think they hinted at it, but they didn't go maybe as far as, this was the 90s and television was pushing. I think maybe they did push the boundaries a little bit in the 90s, but they didn't go as far as maybe potentially they wanted to. And that's just one example that pops off the top of my head. And no, I'm not saying that because I'm some weirdo or anything, but it's if you look at the cultural landscape of the 90s, they were pushing the envelope with the perspective on same-sex relationships and romances and so on, but they didn't go as far. And I think maybe Straczynski may have wanted to go a little bit further, and maybe with this new run, he'll get that opportunity to really maybe explore that a little bit deeper. I imagine there's probably other.
Yeah, he's gonna have a hot young Ivanova on the show. She's gonna be like a Playboy playmate, and you're gonna look at her and you're gonna be like, oh my god,
I don't think so.
she's just-
She's just gonna
She's
ooze.
She's just gonna ooze sexuality, and
I
then
don't
and then
think
that,
so.
and then that entire relationship is going to be explored in full.
All right,
like you
Vienna.
never believed.
All right,
Yeah.
Vienna.
Yes. And
Fiona's
Fiona will be
perfect.
watching. Yes.
All
No.
right.
Babylon 5 produced by
All
Joss
right,
Whedon.
children.
Yes.
We're all adults
Babylon
here. Vienna.
5. Babylon 5. Triple
No,
X.
I'm going to just do a
Season
smart
1.
thing and read
Okay.
more of the Babylon 5 Virtual Season 6. Because that follows the old continuity.
This is really awesome. This season 6. It looks great.
Anyway. Well, guys and gals, we're at an hour, so let's go ahead and start wrapping up. Anything, I'll let y'all have your final thoughts on this episode, and then we'll call it an evening. So the floor is yours. Whoever wants to go first.
I'll jump in because I can only think of one quick short thing. I agree with everything about Byron. On top of it, I think, with even what Mountains is saying, and yeah, I think he's like kind of last minute thrown in or whatever, but I think he works for the story to progress forward for what's going on with the Psycho War later on in the books, and just Lida's progression. It's not perfect, but that's life too sometimes, and I think it's all right. I'm still not a Byron fan, but that's just how I feel about the character.
Who is a Byron fan? I mean,
that's one of my sisters. But
I mean, it took me a little while to warm up to Lockley, but they also gave Lockley more stuff to do.
Yeah.
Because her being situated on the other side, whether by her own choice or not, gave her an interesting opening to be added on even with the Crusade. So,
Yeah, I think Byron should have been recurring this season, and Crusade should have been where much of the events of this season happened to build him up into the character he should have been. And he's not a bad character. I've gone from really liking Byron to despising him to liking him. I flip on Byron from viewing to viewing. I see the really good aspects of him, and I see the bad aspects.
yeah. Sadly, that's the both the bonus and the drawback to, like, all of a sudden we got another season. Yay!
And just one thing as I think about the Len, when she says to Franklin, we need somebody to scan the Ranger, and he says, look, it's inadmissible in court, and the Len then says, but for the and I'm just saying this, but for the fact we know the Len is a good person and won't abuse her power, she then says there are higher courts that she's going to use somewhere else to get at the people who've done it. And that's so dangerous in wrong hands, because that very attitude started the Earthmen-Barry War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think the Lynn has learned her lesson from that. So, yes,
Oh yeah, and I don't think the actor himself is bad. He seems very nice.
Yeah.
But he like, Lockley already had enough like hurdles to get through, and then adding on yet another new person, it was kind of like how they were forced to add in the pilot over in season 2. It's like, you didn't quite mesh.
And JMS killed him off in a spectacular way, so there was no way he'd come back. He showed him melting on screen. He really didn't want that actor back. Or that character back, maybe not the actor.
Well, the actor didn't get along with the cast on set.
Oh yeah,
That's why he was murdered in such a brutal way.
Like, act surprised. Am I coming back? Just act surprised. Oh boy. Well, no, I mean, honestly, with Talia and Lida, Talia and Ivanova, you could take it on just either way, I suppose. Because again, the actress herself, was written off the show eventually. So it's like one of those what if scenarios that we won't ever quite get an answer to.
Oh, we're gonna get it in the new version.
Vienna, you're an adult. Vienna, you're an adult. Act like it.
Hey! But you're not going to catch me hate watching it. Nope. I'll just see what the rest of
Never
the
hate
canaries are
watch
chirping
anything.
about every once in a while, but I am not going to watch even one iota of it. I'm sticking to my
Well,
guns.
that's your loss, and you are a sad, strange little woman, and you have my pity. Farewell.
But no, I stick by my guns though. If I say I'm not going to hate watch something, I'm not going to hate watch something.
I just never hate watching. It's too much stress.
No, I will be watching it and hoping it is as good as I believe JMS can make it.
Yes, likewise. So, well, folks, thank you all for tuning in this afternoon / this evening, depending on where you were watching this. And as always, make sure you leave your thoughts and your comments down below in the comments section on anything that we brought up during the stream. And of course, make sure you smash that like button if you haven't already. It does help out the channel. It does help out the stream. Get out there into the algorithm. And we'll, of course, be back next week with another installment of the Council of Ones. And we'll be continuing our review of Babylon Season 5. And, of course, if you come across this stream and you're not subscribed to myself or the other members of the council, their links are in the chat. I highly suggest you go check out their channels, and if you like what you see, give them a sub. And if you like what we're doing here together, definitely give us a sub. So, but with all that being said, folks, y'all have a great weekend. We will see you all next week, and until next time, this is the Council of One saying 3, 2, 1. Zooty,
Zoot.
Zoot, Zoot, Zoot.
Zoot.
Zooty.